Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We called the meeting to order at 5:05. We do have a quorum of all four ANC survey committee members present. We could do quick introductions. And I just kind of explained to community members present how we handle questions. So the community members will use the raise your hand feature. We hopefully will at the end of the meeting have enough time to also have discussion with community members on issues maybe regarding the survey that you don't hear come up at this particular session. But start off with Lisa Gore, ANC Chair and Commissioner for Single Member District 01. Commissioner Nash, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, everybody. Jim Nash, and my single member, I'm a commissioner. My single member district is 03.
And then Gosselin?
Yeah, Peter Gosselin. I'm 06, mostly the west side of Connecticut back to 42nd Street.
And Commissioner Sherman.
Hey guys, yeah, it's District 2, it's military, then up Oregon and Utah to about Tennyson, and then north of Tennyson into Unicorn Lane.
So commissioners, I think we kind of left off, and what we've been working on is to come to the happy place of the objectives.
Hey, Lisa, before we get started, should we just introduce Susan, who might be familiar? Yeah.
Mhm.
Susan Gili is joining us. She's one of the 3 professional researchers who have volunteered pro bono to help us with this survey project. Susan, if you want to just take a minute and explain your background a bit, you obviously can do that.
Yeah.
More personally than I can.
Yeah, you did a good job last time. So Susan Gili, I have a 3-decade plus career in research for mission-driven organizations, so including the government organization Bruce used to help run. And now I'm an independent consultant helping individuals, building on that and helping organizations, mission-driven organizations use evidence for decision-making in a nutshell. And I live right across from the Episcopal School, in case. So I guess that's the subdivision 04, is that?
Yeah, you're in Zeldin's district and just across the
Zeldin's, yeah.
Yep.
In case that matters.
And for Ron and Libby, just a little addendum. The work that I did with Susan for many, many years was in support of U.S.-funded international media, Voice of America, Radio Free Europe. Those organizations, about $800 million a year of international media. And we supported a $10 to $12 million a year global audience and market research program for decades. And Susan's organization, Intermedia, which was the successor to what had been the internal research operation for years of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, that group became one of the primary contractors for this large international media kind of conglomerate funded by the U.S. government. And I ran the strategy development and research portfolio, and then as a result worked with Susan and her team very closely for all those years. So we're doing a survey in our little ANC compared to work that we did in Yemen and Nigeria and China and Cuba and North Korea and all these places. It's not, I mean, it's complicated, if you will, but it's, it's certainly doable. So there we go, Lisa.
All right, thank you. And thank you, I appreciate it. Somebody's feeding me, but thank you for that. That is a great introduction. So where we left off, new folks, is really a couple things that has happened. The ANC survey team met with Susan and the other 2 consultants who might be joining us, but they're not here right now. If they do join, we'll definitely introduce you, and got a good feel of them and their work. And I think they got a really good feel from us in terms of where we are with this process, how the process came up. We talked about a lot of the issues on the civic core, so they have a pretty good understanding of what's going on community-wise and process-wise, and why we feel like we need the survey. And just on email, the ANC has been going back and forth. So, and then one of the other things that happened is Bruce produced a summary document that had some details about the survey, including its objectives. Bruce, what was some of the other
Well,
things you have?
it basically fleshed out the gist of the conversation we had a week ago Saturday with Susan and Anna Dean and Steve Connors, who are the other two researchers, with Peter, Lisa, Jim, and I. We had that conversation. Then I sort of memorialized that in a one-pager. I kind of walked through, as Lisa said, the objectives, but also as we take a look at the tasks and kind of the timeline. So Ron and Libby, if you haven't heard this before, and Cal, if you haven't heard this before, it is our view that we'd want to field the survey in September and not try to do it over the summer when everybody's away on vacation. And we have then not an eternity, but some time to design the survey questionnaire to test that and get prepared to field it then just after Labor Day. Run it for about 30 days. Take a couple of weeks to process the results expeditiously, and then by mid-October, be in a position to report out the results. So that's kind of where it is. And then that one pager I did identified the steps along the way, about a dozen sequence steps from start to stop. So that's what it was.
And right now we are at the very beginning stage. So you all have not missed much. But where we are right now is defining the objectives. So one thing that we want to do in terms of the survey committee is be very clear what the survey will and will not do. This will help us as a survey team formulate questions that are within the scope of the objectives. It will help our consultants understand what our objectives are, and that we are formulating questions within scope of that. And I think it will also serve the community very well to have the objectives issued early on so that the community knows what the scope of the survey is. That's real important. So for the survey committee, we kind of left off this week emailing back and forth. And if you don't mind, I'll share my screen and go over right now what the spreadsheet looks like in terms of the recommendations for the objectives. And that way everyone could see it, including community members. So we started off by, let me see if I can close this box. We started off when Bruce did his summary sheet with pretty much two objectives. One, community is heard on all issues of concern, and development process is informed with key community criteria. That was the very original objectives. We talked about that, and one of the things that, and a lot of this is email traffic, one of the things that we wanted to change is number one on the objective, on instead of saying on all issues of concern, is on key issues of concern. So I want to kind of just stick with community objective number one right now, because that is the one that really, I think we're pretty much 99.9% there. So I think that'll be the easiest one. So I kind of amended it just to add the community. So very minor grammatical. The community is heard on all key issues of concern. Commissioner Nash had a change to it that said increase this community sense of participation in the civic core redevelopment and its connection with the ANC. So that one is a little different. I tried to combine that by saying, so number Nash's recommendation and our original recommendations by saying, increase the community sense of participation in a civic core redevelopment and its connection with the ANC by identifying and reporting on key issues of concern with the Chevy Chase Civic Core redevelopment process. And then I believe yesterday, Commissioner Zeldin offered an amendment that said, ensure the community is heard on key issues of concern about the Civic Core redevelopment. So, commissioners, that is where we are. I think, I can go with any of these as long. My biggest stickler is that we have key issues of concern regarding the development. And I just think like some of our language, even though we know what we're talking about, I think it has to be so clear that any member of the community reading our objective understands what we're trying to get at. Go on, Commissioner, who is that? Gosselin? That has been raised? Yeah.
Sorry. Never mind.
Okay,
Okay.
Nash.
Sure. Yeah, Lisa, of all the different ones, I like your Second Amendment one the best. I do have a question though. How do you understand key? Because you could, there are at least two ways I can think of that we could understand key. One is what people, the people who are making the most noise are making the most noise about.
Yeah.
Another way to look at it that might be different is things that we can have some say-so over.
Yeah.
Our RFP process.
Yeah.
Do you mean either or both, or do you intentionally want to be a little ambiguous there?
I don't know, and maybe Susan will help us kind of define this in this conversation. But I think, and what I would like to make sure this objective is clear about, and we might have to reword it, is that the issues of concern. So when I think about key, I think about the top concern. So in my mind, I'm thinking about maybe the top 3, 4, 5 major concerns. Now, how do we get there is a process. And Susan had actually offered some good advice on how we get to define, those issues from like, or, identify those maybe major categories of issues by bucket. But one of the things that Bruce had brought up and we had talked about in the beginning was the outreach that we're going to do on a survey. So interviewing the community stakeholders. We had talked about interviewing, the folks that are close to the development. We have a ton of information that we could go through that's now organized a lot better on our site in terms of past surveys. We have all the testimony from the council. We have the council hearing videos where people testified. We probably have close to, well, I know we have close to probably 1,000 pages of community testimony that we could also go through. So I think we have, even outside of, going out and talking to more additional people to try to get at those key issues, we have like enough depository of records that we could decipher that now by going through it. But it is, to me, kind of looking at, what's always bubbling up on the surface with our community in terms of this particular project. And however we identify that, those are the things that we're trying to identify and capture in the survey. And we did have that discussion on what's actionable in terms of this topic. And there's a couple things that I always hear. One, and I sent the ANC an email on this, is, well, whatever the survey says we have to do. No, that's not the fact. So I sent around the OAG ruling that was very clear on our responsibilities there. But the other reason why I sent that around too is because we do have also people that feel like we shouldn't go and ask those questions. But if you look at that statute and how the ANC should really, if we're following it by the book, how we really should be conveying opinions in our resolutions, recommendations. I do think we have to do a better job of reporting both sides of the story. And I haven't found that in our body of work on this project.
What do you mean both sides of the story? What do you mean? by that?
Opinions. So there's always two major opinions. It's all, whatever subject, if it's bike lanes, if it's Connecticut Avenue. Most of the time, I think the historical practice of our ANC has been to report out our opinion and our recommendation, which is not, wrong at all. That's what I think a lot of ANCs do. But I think if you look at the OAG opinion and how we should probably strive to operate, we should strive to provide the full story and context of what we know. So like we've been seeing a lot of feedback on the bike share issue in my SMD. We're going to be able to report, out of probably a whole street, here's how many people agree or don't agree, and here's their comments, because we're getting them in real time. So just kind of like, and then, when we say what's actionable or not, I always think of recommendations, and this is just for my government work. I can always make opinions actionable, regardless of whether they're pro or, anti. It's how we write it, how we frame it, and what we request the city to do as a result of the analysis we do, or the analysis that we find on these opinions. So I do think there is some actionability there. It's just how it's going to be a long, we should probably start drafting this resolution now, because it's going to be a hell of a resolution. It's not going to be a 1 or 2 pager, but I think we can do that. So that's just my kind of thoughts on that. Peter?
Yeah, just 2 things. I think Susan's advice was, particularly if we're pressed for time, which we still are, that we don't act as if we're coming to this de novo and try to find, by all the various focus groups and so on, exactly the questions we're asking. Look, we've been steeped in this for years now. Certainly the incumbent commissioners have. We know the basic headline issues, and so I think that we're not going to have any authority problems there. I do want to address something that I think is implicit in Jim's comment, which is that the question of whether we only ask questions about things that we can influence. I don't think we should go into this process self-censoring. I think we know what the big issues are for the communities, and we are going to work on the framing of the questions, and that's very important. But to not tackle the big issues, I think is a mistake as a substantive matter, and also as in terms of this goal, which is the community being heard.
Okay.
Lisa, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Is that appropriate? I appreciate everything everybody's saying here, and the schedule that Bruce was sketching out, but I'm sort of confused here. If the ANC doesn't know what it thinks about things until this survey is done in October, how is this survey going to impact, say, the zoning that OP is doing now, or the RFP process? It seems like it's all well and good, but is it destined to just to create frustration?
No, I'm not sure what you mean. The ANC doesn't know what it.
Well, I mean, how does if the survey is going to be about preferences for key issues, and those key issues are things that are in the zoning, which is in the pipeline right now, and ordinarily the ANC would be commenting on draft zoning at this point. Is the ANC unable to comment on it until these surveys are done? I mean, I'm just wondering how these schedules work together.
Lisa, a comment on that. We talked the last time about asking DemPed and OP for some consideration, given the community engagement that we are seeking to undertake that we previously had asked them to give us sufficient leave to undertake. So Ron, in part answer to your question, we're not thinking that OP and DEMPED are going to work at breakneck speed between now and September. And that we would have time to do this in a way that is in consideration, of course, of the community interest and the community input. That's the short answer to the question. We're going to ask them for time.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I have a meeting with them on Thursday. Peter?
Yeah, I just, to Ron's question, I think that we already see with our, with DEMPED that we haven't received a notice about the RFP yet, our RFP yet, which suggests that the meeting or meetings won't be until very late July. And so I think that we've got some time.
Okay, if it all meshes, great.
Yeah, and I with regard to OP and the zoning, I mean, Jennifer Steingasser at the at the May 10th meeting was really quite open, quite generous in talking about her willingness to go back and forth with the community. She may be less willing after last night's meeting, but you know, I mean, I think that OP has suggested that they are willing to work on a timeline that would let this survey influence the give us time for the survey.
And Lisa, a couple of things about the objectives. I think the simpler they are, the shorter they are, the better, so that people grasp, in essence, what we're talking about. I can live with several of these. Michael weighed in. His objective, the first one, looks fine to me. And the second one is about getting into providing, as we've already indicated, the input for the RFP, the input for the redevelopment.
Right.
The first objective cashes out, in my simplistic view of this, to a question that really is around, do you want this development that's being proposed in broad strokes at all? And allow people to weigh in so that we can. For the first objective, that's what you're saying? There are two pieces to this, in my view. And the guiding principle here is to stay faithful to the community in all of its complexity and nuance, right? Because we know there are opinions all over the place on these matters. One survey, in my view, can accomplish both the objectives that we're talking about. Let people weigh in on the kind of development that's under consideration, and then let them weigh in on, if this development moves forward, what is it that they want? What do we need to do to inform the RFP? So it's a fairly, in my view, kind of straightforward exercise in that regard. And I see the first objective as being, I think, as I say, Michael's iteration is fine. And even the second one that Michael came up with is also fine. And so anyway, that's how I see it. And I see it as being, you know, the question formulation involves some nuance, of course, but broad strokes, it's, in my view, a relatively simple exercise.
Okay, so commissioners, let's get back to task. Which objective can we live with? I've heard Gore's second, I've heard Zeldin.
Others,
I think they all still stem from the other four that are listed above. And I can do Zeldin's as well for objective one. Peter?
That's fine. I'm fine with Zeldin's language for objective one.
Jim, are you okay with Zeldin's?
You there?
Yes, I
What's missing from Michael's, Jim, that you think we need to add?
ensure the community is heard on key issues of concern. Well, you know, my reservations about it are that, you know, my old problem of identifying the survey with the community. I guess I'd like it better if it were in more nuance there, that people can look at that and say, well, okay, the survey is the community. And that's not the case.
Jim,
Let me go to Susan, our expert, to maybe help us through this part.
No, no, I think I had shared some of this with Bruce earlier, and I don't mean this to be like a matter of semantics. It's just sort of the way my brain works on these things. I actually think what you're talking about, what are the goals of the survey, right? So objectives start to get you a little more specific. What do you want? And I think your objectives here about ensuring the community, the goals, the community is heard, and you want actionable recommendations. Is there a third goal? Because there's massive confusion as to what input the ANC or the community can provide to influence this process, period. Is one of your goals by doing this is to actually educate people, inform them, right? I think this is actually critical to actually getting maximizing, optimizing participation in the survey as well. What difference is it going to make? And then I think that's also related to what you call the survey. If you just call it something generic, I don't know whether you're going to get, why will people participate? Why should people weigh in? Is this, that you see what I'm saying? So if you have your goals, what are you trying to achieve? And do you, I think your goals here are fine. Do you want to add one that a goal is informing or educating the community about where we are in this process and what role the ANC and the community can have at this point? Because I think there's pretty massive ignorance on that. And then yeah.
Go on, Susan.
And then think about the name. And then once you have your goals, then under each goal, you start to say sort of what are the specific objectives or like question areas under each goal, right? So so it's like goals, objectives. So these are your broad, it's not just a matter of semantics, it's also making sure, okay, do we want to achieve, these are our goals for the surveys, then the objectives specifically, what do we need to find out to achieve those goals, right?
Yeah.
It's just sort of a neater process that will make it easier as you develop the questionnaire going forward.
In fact, I included as a tertiary goal in one of my emails, education. So I like that myself. I don't know if the other commissioners do. And one thing that struck me after last night's meeting is that I think we need to help people understand that very often there are trade-offs. And, you can just say, I want this, I want that. But to me, if it's a good survey, we might be able to educate people that if you want more of X, you may have less of Y. And if that would be better information too. But people have to realize that when you can't just have everything, something will give. That's one educational piece, for example.
Jocelyn?
Yeah, to responding to Susan, I mean, look, I'm happy to change the word, the word at the top of the column to goals, and we can work, but we need to get some simple, as Bruce said, some simple, clear language to you three to help us with, and to help ourselves to guide us with all the next steps. And I think if we at this meeting start saying, well, no, we're going to call these goals and now we're going to put objectives under them, we're going to be here for a very long time. To the point of the issue of educating, I think these are goals or objectives for a survey. I think using a word that Jim often uses, I think we need to go into the survey rather humble. I think we need to simply ask some questions. If we plaster multiple graphs at the top before we ask every question to tell them, well, really, we want you to know that this and that and this, we're not being humble. We're not going to get, we're not going to have a simple, straightforward survey, and we're not going to get much. We're going to get a lot of blowback, but not much response. So, my thoughts.
I would say on the education piece that's not a goal for this particular survey. We've done 9 educational series where we had community experts. I don't think you can educate anyone on the complexities of this process in a survey. I mean, I've attended just about everything that's gone on this Civic Corps. And I think it is extremely complicated to try to put that in a survey. I think that in terms of education, that is still a goal of the ANC. And after last night, I'm just going to be, kind of honest. I just don't think that's something the ANC can or particularly should tackle. We're not the technical experts. We had technical experts at a meeting last night, and I would think it would be safe to say that a lot of people still left very confused. And I just don't think that is the ANC's responsibility to do. So that's my 2 cents on the survey. Susan?
Oh,
I just wanted to clarify, I didn't mean educate in the details, that, there will be an intro to the survey, right? To tell the respondent why you're doing the survey. And I just mean in brief, why is the survey be done, and how are the results going to be used? That's what I mean. And that it's something short and sweet.
Definitely. I can do
Yes.
that in 2 paragraphs.
So, and that fits in with telling people, so it's clarifying. So I'm not talking about the technical detail. That's all I'm saying. All
And
right.
I think if framing it that way, I agree with you. And I think if thinking about that framing,
Yes.
it is.
Yes.
We basically have gone through this process. We understand that community members have not felt heard in the process. And in addition to that, we basically know that the process is moving on with the RRFP, and we want to be able to actually, influence that.
I'd like to jump in again as the closest thing to an actual.
Ron, before
Yes.
you do, let me let Cal go, because I was
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
trying to get the commission through this. We're at 5:37, and I know, community members want to speak, but the commission has got to get this done.
Okay,
So, Cal,
fine.
very
I'll wait.
short, then Ron.
I'll be very brief, and this is, it's probably not the time for us to do it, but you did mention it, Lisa, that I think that framing this as there are 2 sides to an issue, I think that's it's very limited and limiting, and furthers the sort of a dichotomous stance of a polarity with only 2.
We would never say that.
I know, but I just think that that's a lot of where our country is stuck. So I don't want us to treat this as binary in any way.
We won't.
Okay, that's all I
Ron?
want to say.
I was just going to say, because I am a planner, I am a technical expert in this stuff, and if my worry is that if the questions are as simplistic as Bruce implied, do you want development at this site? Then, but if those results say no, I don't, and they come to the technical experts, they're going to ignore it because it's too complicated for those simple questions. And as Susan, I'm sure you'll be able to overcome that. But these are very complex issues, and Jim's observation, there's give and take. That's only one part of it. And there is give and take, but if you dumb it down to the simplest possible thing, do you want density or not? There's no reason to waste your time. You know what the answer is going to be, and you know that the planners are going to dismiss it. So, I hope that wherever this goes, it recognizes the complexity of these issues and somehow works that into the survey.
Yeah. Well, we have plenty of time for that. Right now, we're just on basic objectives. So I'm gonna bring us back to task. Commissioners, are you all good with, I know, so Jim, where we kind of left off was, I think you could go with Zeldin's, but I think there's something there that's kind of eating at you. Is there any way to tweak this to make this more palatable?
How about ensure as many members of the community as possible are heard? That's what I'm trying to get at here. I don't like identifying the community with the survey results, which is implied in Zeldin's statement.
I'm okay with that change. Any commissioner have an issue?
No, it's just that we come back to this all the time, Jim, and it's implicit in the community, in my understanding, that it is a multiplicity of views. It's a complex, nuanced phenomenon. We can lay it out in a little bit greater detail. That's okay. But I hear you. I just see it as implicit in the community statement.
I don't agree. And I heard last night someone saying, someone explicitly identifying a survey with a vote.
Yeah.
Okay, Bruce, that is a huge danger. And I'm gonna I'm gonna bore the heck out of you. I'm gonna, anytime I see that, I'm gonna raise a red flag.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Not a vote.
I think part of that too, Jim, and that's please bring up the OAG opinion. And that's what I plan on doing, because I think we do have to educate community members that feel like this survey is going to be our vote. That's not the case. And we're not bound by that by statute. We're bound by statute to understand and understand our community members' perspective and report that. But the opinion piece is very clear that we're not bound by that. And I think we have to, we need to remind ourselves of that, as well as our community members.
I think it might be worth, I'm sorry, maybe I'm going to give up completely on education. Maybe that should be on the preamble to the survey.
Can I just say, this community has had, did Jim finish or freeze?
He froze. Go on.
I hope he comes back, because it's really addressed to him. I mean, this community knows that these are not votes. I mean, for Christ's sake, we've had surveys and surveys and surveys that the community has done, and we're still debating the issue. So I think.
Yeah, but I mean, I think what he's getting at too, Peter, and you've heard it, we've seen it from ZDD members, that they have explicitly said that, I mean, they say that about the surplus meeting. I mean, of course, that is what some members of the community are absolutely saying that. And that's what his concern is, that we don't get caught up in that thinking, because that, and it's okay to remind everybody of that.
I'm not going to fight the words. I think these extra words are unnecessary. I mean, this is an objective or a goal that we are setting the audience is us and our resident researchers. I mean, I don't think we're going to get confused about that matter. But
but the audience is also the community members. These aren't goals, objectives that they are not going to see.
Okay.
These are things that we're going to state.
Can you all hear me again?
Yes.
Am I unfrozen?
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be as many members of the community as possible? Right now, it's as many members of the community are heard. Isn't that a little?
Jim, I'll go along with your wording for the sake of moving on. I don't think. I think that this community, they're adults. We've had a lot of fights with them. We've had some hard meetings, but they've seen a lot of surveys that don't produce the results they want. They've gone to a lot of meetings that don't produce the results they want. The notion that they're going to get confused by this seems, I don't think they're going to get.
Good. Well, Peter, you have more experience, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm reassured.
Okay, so we're good with this as objective goal 1. Okay, let's move on to number 2, because that's the one that's a little bit different.
Lisa, can I just wait just to
Yeah.
say it is best practice. So for this intro preamble to say, who's sponsoring this survey, right? How they're explaining about, confidentiality, how the results will be used, right? So I think that's what I meant sort of by education, because because you can nip in the bud any notion that this would be a vote. Explain what the purpose is, how the results will be used. There's a really short, sweet, but very clear preamble that covers all of these points that you've been discussing.
That's great. I love that idea.
do you have an example of one that you could share with us? 'Cause
I'm
we-
sure I could find one. I'm sure I
Okay.
could find one, but it's just clear who's doing the survey. You know, it's anonymous, how the results will be used, that kind of thing. I'll
Okay,
find something for you.
thank you. Okay, commissioners, we got about 10 minutes. I don't think there's a lot of variability on this next objective. Basically, we all, I think, agree that, you know, from various wordings that we're going to use the data for the RFP on the Civic Core site. Peter, you had your hand up. Do you want to?
Just wanted to say two things with regard to the Zeldin, the language at the end of the spreadsheet on objective 2. You raised in an email to the commission, to the survey group, the issue of why did I not mention our RFP? I'm fine with mentioning our RFP. My argument about this is just simply that I think this process is going to be a lot longer than just that one set of meetings, and so that we want to, you know, if it extends beyond a late July meeting or so forth, that we want to be looking to influence the process as the DEMPED takes us up. The other thing I just say is, again, it seems like self-editing to say to the maximum extent possible. I mean, again, we're grown-ups. We know that we can say a lot of things, and they, you know, only have so much influence. If you don't learn anything on the ANC, it's that. So I don't know why we need to put that phrase in.
Where are you at?
I'm looking at Zeldin. Zeldin right now in the bottom box on objective 2 reads, produce actual recommendations to include in the RFP process for the civic site that, comma, to the maximum extent possible, comma, represent the community's preferences. I'd just take out to the maximum extent possible. And I'd say, you know, and I'm happy to have, you know, our RFP in there. I just like, I think that it's implicit that, you know, we're only going to have the effect to the maximum extent possible. So it's implicit if the process goes beyond our RFP that these survey results might, we hope.
Okay.
So other than that out, I'm fine with Zeldin objective 2.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we should just get rid of the our RFP and simply say in the development process of the Civic Core site, so that would include our RFP, but Peter's other, there could be other things. And so why limit ourselves to that?
Well, my issue is, and I feel real strongly about keeping our RFP in there because that's the initial survey we're working on. I have no idea, and Peter, maybe you can explain it, what other parts of the development process that we are at this point in time surveying about. We're not surveying about surplusing. We're not surveying about small area plan. What are we addressing? This survey, you know, what we initially talked about was that it would influence the RFP. Well, the RFP is part of our RFP. So I have no problem if the ANC as a body says we need to, you know, after our RFP do another survey. Okay, well then that's what we do. But for this one, my understanding was that we are trying to influence the RFP in our RFP process. So that's why I want to prefer to leave it as specific as possible so it's not loosey-goosey. We can have other survey objectives for other surveys, but you know, I don't want to have it too wide open. That's just my preference. Peter?
Can I suggest, I mean, I'm fine with leaving our RFP in, and I'm not going to go to the mat on this, but I mean, our RFP or any further, you know, discussions leading to the issuance of the RFP is kind of what I'm suggesting. But look, for the sake of getting this wrapped up, I mean, you know, I think, you know, if we do a good survey and we get results that are credible, and the process extends beyond our RFP in some way or another, maybe DemPed suddenly decides to go after the deed restriction. They haven't responded to our resolution on that yet that I know of. But in any case, I think it's, if we produce credible results and the process goes on beyond the RFP, I mean, it's obvious we're going to turn to these. So I think that, Lisa, I'm fine with leaving it in. And Jim, I'd argue for, for the sake of getting this stuff done and to our resident researcher experts, I'm good with that as long as to the maximum extent possible. So.
We can take that. How do you guys, the other thing I really want to kind of include in there is that reflect key community preferences for the site.
Yeah, oh yeah, I think that's important too.
Okay.
Yeah, and I prefer, Lisa, your use of reflect rather than represent
Yeah, okay.
for the usual reasons.
Just, I would only add in here just a little nuance, and I agreed sort of with Peter. The RFP process feeds into the RFP, but the survey is going to address issues that might not actually show up in the RFP, but would show up in the ANC's review of the submissions to the RFP when they come through. So, it's a process. The whole RFP process goes beyond our RFP. It goes through selection.
Yeah. But this survey is just dealing with the RFP.
Okay. I'm just thinking there may be results that don't make its way into the RFP. If you look at RFPs, they pick and choose what they put in. So this survey may come up with some strong opinions on X. X doesn't get into the RFP, but it should inform the review of the submissions when it comes through.
But I think maybe Lisa is maybe saying that, look, our focus here is to try to influence our RFP process, but that doesn't preclude us from using these survey results elsewhere,
Right.
As they come.
Right.
I don't have a vote. That's fine.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So is everybody with this language? Are you guys okay with this?
Yes.
Yep.
Bruce?
Yep.
All right.
Yes, I'm fine with all that. Yep.
Now, are you all comfortable moving on with sending this over to the consultants without a vote? I think that we bannered it around on email enough, and I think we have, well, we're 4, so we're a majority. So if we brought this to a vote, it's going to win. But you like that, Peter?
That gets around that problem.
That gets around that. Yeah. But I think we've had enough time for all the commissioners to weigh in, to look at the different suggestions. Everybody pretty much chimed in. Are you guys okay with moving what we've come up with today straight to the consultants for review?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. And what I would suggest we do is just go back and tweak the document that we've shared, the one pager.
That was the next thing.
Yeah, I've shared that with them already, but these will be the new objectives, and then we can move forward. The one thing I would suggest we do is discuss what Susan was suggesting and that we've agreed to, which is the kind of preamble to the survey about how we intend to use this, so that we are all on the same page on that and we socialize it with the other 3 commissioners.
Yep.
Yeah. In other words, Bruce, are you saying that is our next task, is the preamble?
Well, I think it's a task, certainly, yes. And the other part, of course, is to get this to the researchers and then begin the next steps and also to ratify, if you will, the steps that I've outlined, the tasks, so that we're proceeding on schedule.
I agree.
I just sent in a text what that preamble needs to include, just generally. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So Bruce, you want to put that, should we put it on a Google Doc so that we all can kind of, or you want to just do email? How do you want us to?
I might just do a Word document and just send it to you, and that might be
Okay.
whatever you want to do. I'm okay. It doesn't matter. But one
Some
way to-
people do not like Google Doc. I understand that. That's fine. We can do it that way. I think Peter definitely had some, tweaks he wanted to make on that. And I'll look at, but I think you're right on track with our next steps.
Okay. And then I think we want to schedule a meeting with Susan and Anna. Anna got back to me and said she couldn't make it. I didn't hear from Steve, but we want to schedule another conversation with them after they've absorbed this, and then look at what our own detailed plan of action is going to be consistent with the tasks that we've outlined.
Okay.
And Jim, to your question about next steps, I intend to use my Zoom conversation with my SMD constituents tomorrow night to help do what we said we would do, which is inform how we're thinking about the things that are on people's minds. We're going to hear a lot more about that, right? And how people have responded to what OP presented last night. We anticipated this would be a dynamic process, that we would get from OP and even DemPed during the course of this additional input, and we did. And that's affecting how people think about this.
Okay. Sounds good. Can I also ask the committee, the next meeting is scheduled on July 4th. That's the Tuesday. Next Tuesday. Can you move that? Yeah. Do y'all want to move it to Wednesday? I also don't know what your travel schedule is, if folks are going to be out of town. But is Wednesday or Thursday good?
Well, if we move it, let's be sure it's late in the day, because I'm actually traveling out the 4th and have some meetings in Boston the 5th. But I could do it later at 5 o'clock or something, or no, actually the 5th, I like 4 o'clock.
I mean, we could move it to that Thursday, the 6th. I mean, we don't, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm out of town the whole week, but it's a Zoom conversation, so I could participate wherever. Yeah.
I'll be fine Wednesday or Thursday at 5 or 7.
Peter, you want to move it to Thursday?
Yeah.
To accommodate your travel and meetings?
Yeah, Thursday.
Okay.
But, Jim, is there any possibility of doing a little earlier? I'm
Thursday? Yeah.
That's the 6th, right?
Yeah.
Any possibility we could do it at like 4 or something like that? So I could have an evening in Boston.
I'm good with 4.
You good with that, Jim?
Yes.
You okay, Bruce?
Yeah, that should be doable.
Okay.
So we're doing it at Thursday at 4 p.m.
Yep.
Hey,
July 6th.
Yeah.
Well, you start your evenings early, Peter.
No. I start my evenings with a meeting, and actually, when we finish this meeting, I've got to go to another meeting at the Garfield. So, and to Bruce's point, I'm printing up copies of the presentation from last night, taking them over to the Garfield. So.
Hey, Peter, did you get, I don't think you got all of the OP handouts. Did you get them? I got a ton of them and they were good.
But hold it, you have electronic copies of those?
No, they're just hard copies.
But I've got electronic copies. Those are online, Lisa.
You got them?
What if you go to their website, the what is zoning description? I've shared that with my community before. Yeah, it's good. Those are good documents.
Okay, so hold it. That's just a one-page explainer
On what is zoning, for example.
Where'd you get that, Lisa?
They had them at the meeting. This is on the text amendments.
Okay.
And this is Chevy Chase, the graphic of the height.
Right. They're embedded in the PowerPoint too.
Yeah, they are embedded.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I'll pull those.
Where is that PowerPoint?
It's
on
online.
the website.
And
It's on our website.
And
Okay.
Lisa sent it out by email yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also just technical, Bruce and Jim and Peter. I think I sent you guys the link to our last meeting. I don't know if that got posted on YouTube, but as soon as this one gets to the cloud, I'm gonna send you the link for this one. If you could post this meeting on YouTube.
You want me to do that, Lisa?
Whoever.
I can do it because I've got to do it for our meeting last
Okay.
week too. And so if you could send me both, then I'll do them both.
Got it.
Okay.
All right, we accomplished our task for today in under an hour.
And talked about bacon.
And talked about bacon.
All right, we're out of here.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, community
you.
members, for
Bye.
joining.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.